What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mastering Body Language with me, the Body Language Noob. So we're starting off a new series called the Silent Command Series. It's for those people who want to learn body language that commands people, that is a leadership type body language, or speaking skills. It's going to be a little more on the informative end. I might throw in some things that are funny and stuff like that to keep it kind of entertaining and not boring, but it's definitely not going to be as funny as like the random thoughts videos and things like that. But let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about persuasive speaking, and you can be persuading when you are speaking in front of a crowd or speaking with your friends or speaking to girls at a bar. But there's 3 rules that you need to remember when you're trying to be persuasive when you're speaking. Number 1, simplicity is key in your presentation. Number 2, relate the presentation to the audience in some way. And number 3, tell stories and display body language when you're telling those stories to make them interesting. So number 3, tell stories. Those are the 3 rules to being a persuasive speaker. And now we will go into more detail about those rules. When giving a presentation, sometimes we fall in the trap of making the presentation too complex. A lot of us fall in that trap. We try to make the presentation so complex, and we think that if we are more complex, we're going to make the audience think that we're smarter. That's actually wrong. When you're too complex, the audience loses interest. So the important thing is to keep your presentation simple. Simplicity is going to show your intelligence much more. You're taking a very difficult topic and you're making it as simple as possible. And that way, more and more people will listen and remember exactly what you're saying. If it's too complex, they're going to remember 5 to 10% of whatever you said during your presentation and leave. That's not what your goal is, so you want to keep it simple. Relate the presentation to the audience. Tell a story to relate the presentation to the audience. Ask the audience some questions. You need to figure out what you're going up against before your presentation starts. You need to see what type of people these people are and their age groups, male or female, what their interests are, so you can relate to the audience when you're speaking. That's going to be the best way to grab the attention of your audience and have them listening the entire presentation, especially if it's an hour or 2 hours long. Remember that stories add entertainment to the presentation. Don't tell too many stories because you might get off topic, but sprinkle them in the presentation. So if you're having a conversation with your friends, I'll always tell stories, especially if I'm explaining a situation that happened. I'll even act out the stories. It's being persuasive. It's making that person super into the story that you were telling. I just thought of something that would be kind of funny, is if you were telling a really interesting story and you're acting it out and everything, and you're running and you're doing the whole thing, you're acting, and all of a sudden you just stop and you walk away. See what happens. See if that person's like, hey, what? You know, more than likely they'll be like, what? But if they go, what? And then they're like, well, you're going to finish your story, then you know that you're being a persuasive speaker. It's important to realize that during conversations, there's encoders and decoders. The encoder is the person who encodes or creates the message, and the decoder is the one who's listening and trying to decode the message. When you have encoders and decoders sending messages to each other, it's important to make those messages as simple as possible and entertaining as possible, so the decoder has a reason to even decode the message. Another important way to be persuasive is to understand that messages are sent verbally and non-verbally. So it's important to study body language and kinesics as well, because body language will help you be a more persuasive speaker. And the last thing I want to throw in here, when you're having a conversation with someone and you're trying to be persuasive, it's important to listen with your ears and your eyes. Observe the person's body language, because most of the time, that's what your audience is doing. They are listening with their ears and their eyes. They are looking at your body language to find congruence and to see truth. They don't want to be fed bullshit. So when you're trying to sell a presentation or be persuasive, your body language is going to need to match up with what you're saying verbally. And that is basically the first episode of the Silent Command series. It's probably how most of these are going to be. I might tweak them a little bit. But if you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to see more. This is a series that I'm going to be starting, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed it, go ahead and share it with somebody. But this is the end of the episode, so go out, be persuasive speakers, and I'll see you next time. Peace.